And joining us now from Riyadh in Saudi Arabia is senior U.S. correspondent Mike Wagenheim. Mike, thank you for joining us. The talks between the U.S. and Russia are naturally headlining the news, but Rubio is also in Riyadh to discuss Gaza's Trump proposal, right?
Yeah, that was his original plan, was to come here today to meet with Mohammed bin Salman, meet with other Saudi officials, try to move forward on the Gaza issue, try to get on the same page as to where the Trump administration stands, to possibly relay messages from Israel from his meetings yesterday. And then it was to be on to Abu Dhabi tomorrow and then back to Washington on Tuesday evening. Plans change, and it just so happens now that he'll stick around here an extra day tomorrow here in Riyadh to have those Russia talks. But on the agenda today, in fact, right now, he is meeting with Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman here in Riyadh. Steve Witkoff joined that meeting. He arrived in Riyadh about an hour and a half ago. So did Mike Waltz, National Security Advisor. And at this point, just trying to figure out exactly where Saudi Arabia stands, but also the Saudis trying to understand better where the Americans stand right now. You know, obviously Donald Trump made his point clear on what needs to happen with Gaza going forward. The Saudis, though, in the middle of the night that night, jumped online and issued a statement saying no way, no how, essentially, it's not going to happen. And ever since then, there seems to be a little talk between the Saudis and the Americans on a path forward here. So trying maybe to reset things and to understand where everybody's red line is. The Saudis saw what happened last week with King Abdullah and his meeting in the White House. Abdullah put on the spot on the issue, got a lot of backlash for his comments in refusing to essentially stand down from President Trump on the issue. The Saudis don't feel like getting caught in that same trap here today with the Americans, and mainly right now it's a feeling out process in terms of how to move forward, and will the Saudis contribute to the rebuilding of Gaza minus advancement on a Palestinian state here. Forget normalization, we're talking about a day after plan. Will the Saudis be involved to any substantive level without a path forward here on a Palestinian state, something the Israelis, and for that matter the Americans, have expressed no interest in moving forward with.
And Saudi has become now the epicenter, also spearheading a counter-proposal to Trump's plan. Do we have an idea what this proposal might look like?
Well, it's coming from a few different angles right now. The Saudis, yes, they're like spearheading it, is I guess one way of putting it, but the Egyptians have also said they're going to lay a plan out on the table as well. This is part of what Trump essentially intended to do. Listen, if nobody else is going to come up with a plan, we've been doing the same thing over and over again for decades now. It hasn't worked. Obviously, October 7th was about as big a piece of evidence as any that it's not going to work going forward here. So Trump made, as he does, a maximalist proposal, and now saying, you got something better? Bring it to the table. Well, I'm not sure if the Saudis are the one to do it at this point, because it would involve major concessions. It would involve either putting a huge amount of money out on the table. It would involve some sort of military force to oversee Gaza post-Hamas. These are very, very delicate things for the Saudis to get involved in. They tend to play more of a backdoor role in these types of events here. So they may kind of lead the Egyptians and the Qataris and everybody else to the table, but in terms of grabbing the bull by the horns here and laying out their own plan on the table, I think those days are kind of past at this point, and maybe they're looking maybe to the Egyptians, to the Jordanians, to put some skin in the game as well here, and try to find a path forward that unites all of the Arab groups. Keep in mind, you can't have, at this point, everybody kind of speaking for themselves. Doesn't work at this point. I think Trump and Waltz and Witkoff and Rubio and anybody else you throw into the room here are going to want a unified Arab vision, but I think it starts here in Riyadh, and then after the Arab Summit, which is supposed to take place either on February 7th, 27th or 28th at this point. I think once again everybody will regroup. We'll maybe see a White House visit at that point from Egyptian President Sisi, and maybe at that point some coherent vision of how things can move forward on the Arab front vis-a-vis the day after plan for Gaza.
All right, that's senior U.S. correspondent Mike Wagenheim in Riyadh. Thank you for that update.